to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another one!
Oladipo!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and
he hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios and brought to you by our wonderful friends from Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Go to andymorehonda.com for the best in new and used vehicles, and I'm sure you can get some great deals on some 2022s. Also, don't forget Endeavor Hospitality and their WOW Club. Make sure you go to the WOW Club, sign up, start earning WOW rewards today. They are an IU Athletics sponsor, as well as one of Indiana Sports Beat Radio, most importantly, to great places like BB's Market, who I expected to be coming to you from today. And I'm disappointed that I'm not there right now. The only reason I'm not is because my keys are locked in my vehicle. And it's not my fault. While I was gone, the friend that I was doing a favor for was using my vehicle, and when it got super, super cold, something went bad with the locking system, and now a different way, but it has gone bad, and I have a tile on my keys. You know those tile things that track?
Yeah.
I have one in my wallet and on my keys. So I'm like, hey, all right, I'll pull out the tile. I just got a new phone, so that took me a little extra time, but the wallet was popping up, and I was like, well, that's strange. And it was showing my keys showing up from 2 days ago, a place where I was 2 days ago at just up the road. And I'm like, wait a minute, I was somewhere last night. So I went to the mailbox. I remember that. And it wasn't making sense. They weren't showing up. So I kept walking around looking. I'm hoping to get to BB's. And I finally am able to see them in the passenger seat of my car.
Oh.
And I'm like, you dirty SOB. And it's one of those, it's really tough to break into. I tried already. I'm like, gosh, dang it. So I'm going to have to continue that measure later, but I'm disappointed that I'm not at BB's enjoying an incredible BB's breakfast right now, that's more disappointing than having my keys locked in the car, because I know that situation will eventually be resolved. But man, but the tile thing, I'm not showing up. It makes no sense. They're right there. Why are they not showing up? I wonder. Because of the cold. I wonder if it's because of the cold.
It
Surely
might be.
not. Surely not. They're not that weak.
Is there a more heartbreaking feeling than seeing your keys locked in the car? Like if I didn't know where they were.
No, because not knowing where they are is worse, because at least I have them centralized. I have them centralized. Well, yeah, don't worry, Kevin. We're going to get onto that. Good morning, Scott. Appreciate you, brother. Mike jumping on. Fred. A lot of people not happy. John, how are you, sir? Let's see. Is that you? Are you Mike's brother? Just kidding. Sean says the sun has come up. He thinks it's cloudy. Really getting tired of watching games they should win, yet find ways to lose them. Prayers with race. I knew he was. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Fred says giving up 91 points to the team that got beat at home by Eastern Illinois and was down a starter this game and not rested. Not a good look for IU. Well, that means they gave up 51 points in the second half is the bigger number there. So, yeah, we're going to talk about it all. Don't worry. Let's see. Though there was not a post-game show last night because we made the determination that we generally don't do post-game shows on 11 o'clock games. There's no point in it because unless it happened to be a Friday night game or a Saturday night game where we don't have a show the next day. Like today, Todd will be on the program today. Todd Leary, we're going to have him on the final 2 segments to basically do that then. So don't worry, we're going to get you caught up on that, what he thinks, and you're lucky he's had time to think about this, because he did send me a message last night saying, "Good thing we're not doing a post-game show tonight." So there's that. Sean says he feels we are replaying a 23-year-old broken record. He believes the coaching is again below average, can't fight for 40 minutes, can't beat his zone, overthink situations, and players' development is minimal. Fred says, "Good morning, Jim and Dustin and John. Always good to hear your voices." Well, you know what? It's good to be heard. Better than the alternative. So is it Groundhog Day?
It might be.
I thought that was in February.
No, I think they're talking about Groundhog Day in terms of the result with Indiana.
Oh, I got you. I was going to say, man, y'all got me all jacked up. Dave Cattell, how are you, my friend in Jacksonville? Hey, Dave, and thank you once again. Dave had sent me a Whataburger gift certificate for Christmas.
Nice.
And I'm like, well, damn, when am I going to get to use this damn thing? I mean, I'm thinking, well, that's really nice, but I was thinking, when am I going to get to use this? Well, guess what? When I went to Kansas for the game, I looked it up, and they had some. And on the way back to the airport, me and Mike Schumann were riding together. And I said, "Brother, we're going to Whataburger." And he had never had it. I'm like, "It's on me." Or I said, "It's actually on Dave." But and actually, I think those, or some of those, or all of them, at least the one we were at, is a franchise owned by Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, nice. That would make sense.
So Kenneth says I can get a kit to open my door for like $40 off of Amazon. Well, that's great if they'll show up today. I'm going to have to get it regardless, just because. Kenneth's upset with the officials. Yeah, the officials are morons. They make stupid calls. And let me just go ahead and get this out of the way, and I'll probably talk about it again. I'm sick and tired of the Fran shtick. It's run its course with me. I'll be the first one to tell you, I've enjoyed it for a while because it's kind of funny, but it's no longer funny, and it has nothing to do with Indiana. It's the same old thing every game. Here's Fran. Oh boy, I'm gonna kick your ass. Here, guys, hold me back. Then so last night you've got 2 instances. He was out on the court once. Another time he goes way past center line into not the IU huddle, but right up to an IU coach who I believe
Yazir Roseman
was talking to an official at the time to butt his big ass head into that, and had to be quote unquote held back by 4 people, including 2 officials. Really? What? First of all, what are you going to do? It's like it's like the WWE set up BS. It's like every game he's like, "All right, here, about this time I'm going to do this and yada yada." You know what? It's a technical foul. You call this BS crap on Jordan Geronimo for throwing the ball to the official for delay of game.
Weak.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute. But you let this crap go on.
Yep.
It's just BS and has nothing to do again with Indiana losing. We'll get to that.
This is what I was telling John before we came on this morning. Back in the 90s and even before, officials were a lot tougher on coaches. And you saw a little bit of this with Bob Knight and Gene Cady, but I feel like part of this, I think, is an act on Fran's part to know that, that's just Fran being Fran. And I think the officials, that's their mindset. Oh, that's just Fran. But I don't understand
it's the same
why
thing
one
with
guy.
Bob Knight, but there's a difference.
Correct.
Bob Knight was Bob Knight. When you got 3 banners hanging, Yeah, you get a little more leeway.
I understand that, but I'm saying officials were also not afraid to throw Gene Katie and Bob Knight out of games.
They what?
They were not afraid to throw those guys out of games if they crossed a line.
No, but the thing is, even Bob Knight, not every game did
Correct.
you see him blow up. Is there a
game
at
the officials?
Well, I'm just saying, acting like a complete idiot every game. I don't think he did it every game. I mean, he may get upset with calls and whatnot, but I'm talking about what Fran McCaffrey does. They're two different things. He acts like he's a serial killer. He's out onto the floor, and he go into another coach from another team across midcourt and have to be pushed away by 4 people. That's a technical foul. That's inciting. Right. I could just go on and on and on. I'm just done with the shtick that he's allowed to get away with. Because right now, tell me if Tom Izzo, even veteran he is, if he kept storming over to someone's side, he may get away with it. But
I don't think Tom Izzo would do that.
No, he wouldn't. He's got more sense than that. This is all an act by Fran McCaffrey. It's an act. It is a freaking act. But if Steve Peichel did that, if Penn State's coach did that, what, are you kidding me?
Don't you think if Mike Woodson would have done that, he would have been gone? Because he doesn't. I'm not saying he doesn't have the same respect, but he doesn't have that same temperament. So if you see him go
he's not doing it, I think yes, I agree with you, because he's going to saunter over there,
right?
And it catches more attention. Where Fran just comes bullying in there, and they're like, "Oh no, we just got to get him back. We got to get him back." Oh, BS! I'm sick. I'm sick of the shtick.
The other part too,
I'm just done with it.
The other part too that other people weren't talking about after he went across there, Connor McCaffrey ran over there and he got in Yazir Roseman's face. Now he probably didn't get quite as close, but he tried to start something too. So you could have probably called 2 technical fouls in that scenario. And typically, I'm not one to let that kind of call dictate a game, but we've also reached a point where he's been allowed to do this kind of stuff regularly and get away with it regularly.
Well, you know what? I don't want to sound like we're making it. That's a kind of.
It's not. I'm not saying there's a million reasons why Indiana lost that game. I'm just saying the part that bothers me.
Yeah. I was just getting on a rant about I'm tired of his shtick.
Well, the problem to me is, and this is to the point, like it's never going to change because they won't. I don't understand why there are no repercussions for this.
Well,
I feel like if 13 other coaches, there would probably be some sort of ramification. Well, maybe not. I mean, Juwan Howard has had his instances too, maybe not quite as frequent, but he's had some blow-ups too. But he's just going to continue to do it because for whatever reason.
Well, of course it is. It's good TV for one thing.
Well, that is a good point.
Mike says, in regards to my thoughts on the TJD letter yesterday, I agree 100%. The rules have changed. And you know what? And not only, I don't want to really get into it again, but not have the rule changed. I'm just, again, I want to be clear on what my issue is, first of all. And secondly, because I have an issue with it does not in any way mean I agree with or support what some moron did or what some person did. I shouldn't call him a moron. You know what? Here's another thing. Did that letter look and sound like it came from someone who is completely in tune with social graces and all of that? No, it is not. So guess what? People need to step back and take a freaking chill pill, man. Maybe who knows what this dude's situation is. I mean, we could be talking about someone who doesn't have all the faculties there. So you're going to let that derail you? That's number one. Number two, there was just nothing. That was a benign letter. It was just very benign to me. And number three, where was all this fallout when Geo Baker called them out, flat out punked them, called them out on a national platform that you know good and damn well that every one of them heard it because it was played everywhere, here and everywhere else. You know for a fact that they heard that. Crickets. They didn't say a word to that, though, did they? But so this is something where you can pick on, oh, you know what? I'll get sympathy for this. And that's exactly what I thought it was. And the biggest problem I had with it is that it came on the heels of Patrick McCaffrey's decision to step back because of dealing with some anxiety and mental health. But when Trace Jackson Davis labeled, do you want to know why we have played? Oh, really? So Geo Baker punks you, calls you out on a national platform. That doesn't affect you. But this guy who may not have all of his faculties, that affects you. See, that's selective. That's being selective on what you choose to take in. That's my entire problem with it. And then to use it to run it out because you know you're going to get nothing but support for it. That was my issue about it.
I gotcha. I just think it's different when it becomes a personal letter. We're going to agree to this. We're going to agree to disagree on that.
See, again, we're talking about two different things. I don't care what form it came in. I don't care. It's the fact that you're choosing for this one to. I'd rather send me a personal letter where not everybody in the world sees it than Geo Baker going on a national platform and basically call you a punk, weak, soft. He did it to the whole world.
But
that's way worse.
Doesn't Geo Baker kind of have that right? I mean, he played the game. He played against Indiana.
But wait a minute. But why don't you respond to that? If you're bothered by this stuff, why didn't that one bother you? You know why? Because that guy's going to come back at you again, and because he can back it up, and you know he can back it up. That's just I don't want to get off on it again, but we got Alec Lasley waiting in the wings from the Hoosier.com, so no sense in holding him off. We got a big lineup today, as a matter of fact. Of course, Alec is with us. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star. Todd Leary is going to join us, and we'll break down the action from last night and preview there's more coming. Got another game on Sunday. Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from Endeavor Hospitality's Wild Club, places like BB's Market, where I wish I was right now, and you should be. And I'm sure that Lee Butler is there right now because I told him I was going to be there, so I apologize, Lee. But we're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Morning, Alec.
Good morning.
What do you want to talk about today, Alec?
Welcome to the friendly confines of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Please, can we got to stop with this letter nonsense. We got to stop. I'm not bringing it up.
I think he was planning on talking to Zach about it.
Nah.
I'd say pass. This is too controversial.
No, I'll tell you who exactly who I'll bring it up to briefly is Todd Leary.
Yeah.
He's a former player.
That's fair. That's okay. That's fair. I'm on board with that. I don't mind doing the controversy stuff, but I feel like I feel like we drilled that into the ground yesterday.
Well, trust me, I pulled back the
and TJD went 30-9 last night. I mean, you can't
with the bad back.
Come on. With the bet, come on.
I'm not again, you all see when there's a disagreement and people's point is not agreed to, it's not that my entire point. That's why I made it again, because people confuse disagreeing with the opposite side as agreeing with that person. I'm not agreeing with what he did or anything. My whole points was everything or anything in that letter not been just plastered all over social media already by everybody previously? B, did he not get just flat out punked by Geo Baker on a national sports platform and did nothing about it? Yes. So, to me, there's two responses to that letter. You take it, you tape it up in your locker room, you look at it every freaking day, and you read it every day. And at the end of the season, when you've done the opposite of that, what's on that letter, then you bring it out and said, this is what I used for motivation this year. But you don't do it out the day before a game that you got to go play that you need to go win. My personal opinion. But I'm an old man who
yells at clouds.
Get off my lawn.
Yells at
clouds.
That's what Fran McCaffrey does.
Fran McCaffrey.
Fran yells at paint. That guy's a moron.
That's a good one.
That is, it yells at paint.
The pink paint in the Iowa locker rooms.
There you go. Here we go.
Stone strives to always provide their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Sounds like coming to you from the Old West. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. Hope you're ready for the weekend. Jim Coyle with you as always. Dustin Schutte as well, our co-host, and as he joins us each and every week, Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com. Alec, Indiana, with a game that I felt confident they were going to be able to go in and win last night, especially with Iowa having not been playing well, on top of not having Connor McCaffrey, and then having the time off. They played like they were refreshed. They come out, they looked the part, they were moving, they were sharing the ball, they were scoring. They jump out to a gigantic lead, 22-4, I think, 27-8. We're early, which anytime you see gigantic leads like that at the start of games, it's either going to be one or two things. It's going to be a complete blowout, or that the other team is going to have enough time to get back into the game. Unfortunately for Indiana, they let Iowa not only back into this game, but to win it. Losing Race Thompson obviously hurt, but no excuse, because we're talking about an Iowa team that is also down.
Yeah, I mean, that was a pretty big gut punch for Indiana last night. We talked about it last week and in the week before. Just the start of Big Ten play here in January was extremely critical for Indiana. Regardless of kind of how they played, you needed to come out with a couple wins, and you put yourself in position to do that right out of the gate, right? The slow starts were probably the biggest trend that came out of non-conference play for Indiana, and you kind of wiped that against the wall and came out ready to play. Everything they did in the first 8 minutes was incredible, right? That looked like a top 15 team playing on the road against a team that had lost 6-9, 3 in a row, really had no identity. A lot of things even outside of the program, right, with Patrick McCaffrey going on, and just a team that had looked a little bit lost. And Indiana did exactly what they needed to do coming off of a 13-day break. And, injuries aside, right, because you hear Mike Woodson talk about it. You heard Trace Jackson-Davis talk about it. Everyone talks about it, right? That's part of the game. That's part of sports. Injuries are going to happen, regardless of if it's to your star player, your role player, whoever. You need to find a way to win that game. You're up 21 points on the road against the Big Ten team, though that does not come around more than once in a year. And with how many games will probably come down to 1 or 2 possessions for this Indiana team, how many games that have come down to 1 or 2 possessions to this Indiana team for the past couple of years, they've always been on the wrong side of that, and they've never been able to flip the script and be on the right side of that. They found a way to do that a little bit last year towards the end of the season, and they've just kind of resorted back to their old ways of not being able to fight through adversity, to fight through any sort of punch that's thrown. And again, I still am concerned about the in-game adjustments that Mike Woodson fails to make. Connor McCaffrey said it. I don't know if you guys heard it. Pretty sure other people have heard it, but after the game last night, basically said that when they went to zone, it looked like those players and that coaching staff had never seen zone before. So how does that happen? Because that offense was incredibly disappointing when they went to zone, and it was standstill. There was no movement. There was no cutting. There was no driving. There was nothing. It was pretty disappointing to say the least, to see that final 30 minutes of action unfold, and you're kind of right back to square one, if not below square one, with this Indiana program and this Indiana team at the current moment, with, again, so many questions now with how they move forward, who steps up, and not a lot of faith in potentially some of those reserves who I think a lot of people had a lot of faith in a few weeks ago.
To that point, Alec, and this is after Race Thompson went out of the game, so I think that obviously did make a difference. I'm not making excuses because I'm going to get to the point here, but Jordan Geronimo, a lot of times, other than just he made a lot of mental mistakes in that game, but at times on the floor, he looked very lost on the offensive end. I mean, there were a number of times it seemed like he was bumping into Trace Jackson Davis. And to me, that's very concerning because this is a kid who's been in the program for a couple years now. And you need to at least have an understanding, to me. So there's either one of two things going on here. Either he's not fully grasped the offense or what he's supposed to be doing in certain situations, or there's a development problem from the coaching staff standpoint, because in those situations, we talked all offseason, this team has depth, they've got experience. This should be a team that, even if they have to deal with injuries, should be very competitive. And while he did at times do some good things, he made, to me, far too many mistakes. And I thought a lot of times he clogged up the lane and Indiana's offense looked dysfunctional. I don't want to put the full blame on him. Did you think that was a Jordan Geronimo issue at times last night, or did you think that was an Indiana offense, like you said, and like Connor McCaffrey said, not realizing or not knowing what to do against his own?
Well, I can tell you one thing, though. If he just hit one of his 3 missed free throws, that would have changed the game, because his stat line other than that was pretty good for the minutes that he played. He scored 9 points on 4 of 6 shooting. He hit his only 3-point attempt, but he missed all 3 free throw attempts in a 2-point loss.
Yeah, I mean, he also had a plus minus of minus 18. Yeah. Significantly worse than anyone else on the roster there. I don't always like to look into plus and minus because there's a lot of different variables that go into that. But I mean, that's playing for last night. I mean, the biggest asset that he brought to this team was versatility, especially on the defensive end, and that athleticism. And last night he showed absolutely nothing defensively and was dominated by Chris Murray possession after possession after possession. And right with no Malik Renew, that puts Indiana in a very significant hole. Because you're not getting anything from Malik, and now you don't know how long Race is going to be out. And now you look at that front court that was supposed to be one of the best in the country, one of the deepest in the country, especially the Big Ten, right? At least. And now you have one answer, and a guy who is playing on a bad back, who was obviously in pain in the second half yesterday. But to go back to your point about Jordan Geronimo, I mean, I don't necessarily think it's development.
He's not that good of a player. First of all, he's a great athlete, and I don't mean this to be negative, but he is what he is. This is a guy again who thought he was going to be playing NIA basketball until Archie Miller offered him a scholarship. So let's not forget this. He's a freak athlete, not a freak basketball player.
I understand that, but the thing I'm getting to Alec is you have to know the offense. If you're going to be on the floor, you have to know what you're supposed to do. And at times, he just looked lost. And that's why I'm asking, is that more of a coaching thing, or is that more of a Jordan Geronimo thing? Because that has nothing to do with your basketball ability to understand what you're supposed to be doing after a few years in the system.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone else is at least at some point figured it out, right? I mean,
right.
At some point, you just need to have the IQ, or either you don't, right? And some people don't, and they get away with it because they have the great athletic ability. Not everyone's going to have top-notch IQ, right? If they did in basketball, it would be a little easier to play. So it's very difficult because he shows flashes every single minute that he gets at some point, right? But he has those lapses on both ends of the floor that are just too much to overcome, and that's why he maxes out at 11, 12 minutes a game. And now, whether it be good or bad, right, you're gonna have to play through those lapses. And he brings his upside at this current moment, right? At this moment is way higher than Malik Renew, because Malik Renew has significantly dropped off and is not bringing any positive to the floor. Jordan Geronimo is still bringing
Indiana.
Yeah, and Jordan Geronimo is still bringing some positive moments. The negative moments are just way outweighing those positive moments. So, with two starters down, with two players who could at least score the ball at times, I don't know really where you go. It'd be great if you had one additional wing who you could kind of throw in there as a stretch four, but you don't have that, and it's just one of those things where you're at the point in the season where you're either going to have to figure it out or you're going to kind of go down with the ship, and I think that's what you're going to have to do with Jordan Geronimo, and this is going to be, I think, his either defining moment one way or another for Indiana, right? Either he's going to live up to some of those expectations and show those flashes and be consistent. And that's not scoring 20 a game. That's not scoring 15 a game, but you need some sort of production out of him, or he's going to resort back to a lot of those lapses, that we've seen. And I mean, just a significant one last night was the clear goaltending call that the refs ended up giving Indiana when Trace Jackson Davis had the little turnaround and Jordan Geronimo went up and tried to have the putback dunk, right? You just need to be way smarter than that. Obviously, it didn't hurt Indiana in the long run there because they still got the 2 points, but my gosh, there's just so many moments, like you said, Dustin, where it's just the lapses, and it's not physically, it's just mentally, which I don't think you can really help, at this stage in his career.
Malik Renew is one that is now of great concern because he has not shown development. It's like he has hit a wall, and that wall is at the same place. He hasn't passed that. He comes in, he's too slow. He gets fouls. He just piles up the fouls way too quickly. And once you do that, well, you can't help from the bench. And now with the injury to Race Thompson, which I'm not going to speculate on it, but obviously it did not look good. I was judging by the tears coming down his face because I don't think that had anything to do with pain. I think it had to do with nothing but him knowing that he does not, him playing basketball again is in question for Indiana, at least, because we don't know what happened with it. And, but with it being this time of year, I don't know. But it does not look good. You can just hope the best for him. He has been a warrior for that program, but golly, without him, this team is going to be in trouble because Malik Renew has not shown to be a reliable backup that I expected him to be, especially with the promise he showed early on, and having continued to get to work with Race and Trace every day. I'm not sure why that development is not there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think it's development, right? Because he's shown that he can be that player. I think it is,
he's not gotten he's not improved for the last.
Well, yeah, but
month
again,
you
look at the freshmen who are supposed to come in from day one and make a significant impact, and that number is very small compared to how many freshmen come into college basketball every single year. You got one of those guys with Jalen Hood-Schifino, right? So Malik Renew has shown those flashes, but I think it's just more of that freshman wall that 99% of freshmen hit right around this time, right? You get into big time non-conference games, much better than the cupcake games that Indiana had on their schedule. Then you get into Big Ten play where everything is just way more physical. you're going up against, again, guys who have been there for 4, 5, now even potentially 6 years, right? That's a huge difference. Even if it's not development, just overall frame, toughness, and mental capacity, right? I mean, he's going through finals, first time going through college finals, a lot of games on the road, not a lot of time just to relax, going through obviously the holidays, coming back after that. You know, this is where you see the wall as a freshman. Again, same thing with Jordan Geronimo. You're now going to have to just ride with them and see if they can break through any of this inconsistent play, because Indiana needs one of them desperately to step up. And, you know, I know people are going to probably talk about, well, why don't we see Logan Duncombe? We probably will a little bit, but you're not going to be the team that you can be if you're going to have to rely on Logan Duncombe, who again now has been in the program a few years and hasn't shown anything, mainly because he hasn't been able to stay healthy. You need to go with the guys who have the higher upside right now, in my opinion, right? And see in these next few games if you can get anything out of them to build on going into the, you know, the real deep part of Big Ten play.
Five Lefts brought up a good point.
We got to go ahead.
I was just going to ask real quick before we go to break. Five Lefts brought up a good point. He said Malik is rushing his offense. Do you think that he's in a situation where he came to Indiana maybe thinking he was going to play big time minutes? He's in a reserve role. He's trying to do too much when he's on the floor. Do you think that's a problem for him or not really?
I don't think so. I think it's just really adjusting to the college game and the length, the toughness, and the athleticism of all these guys he's going against.
We've got to take a quick break. Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com is with us. We are talking about Indiana basketball. Dustin Schutte as well. We've got much more coming up right after this, brought to you by our good friends from Endeavor Hospitality and the Wow Club. Make sure you check out Go Team. For you, those of you on the go, whether it's you, your students, your athletes, whomever, Goteen is a quick, delicious snack packed full of protein, and you can pick it up at BB's Market or online, goteen.com. Back with more after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Golfers, here's the deal.
Golfers, here's the deal.
You know what? That commercial's got to be taken off.
It does? I thought that was good through the. Was that sign-up deal only through the end of the year? I'm gonna play it real quick while it's.
There's a limited number of memberships available, so go to eaglepoint.com right now and get yours today.
Well, I guess I'm not gonna hear all of it, but oh well. I just didn't realize it was only good for a couple of months, but yeah, that's fine. We can cut a new one. You may need a new Andy Moore Honda. I don't know how old that one is. It might be a little too old, especially with new vehicles coming in this year.
I bet these things weren't stolen very often. Can't get into those damn things.
All right, Alec needs to be out as close to 9:30 as we can, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that earlier.
Nope. You doing town, Tracy?
Well, yeah, but I have another meeting.
I don't care.
You
still doing those guys?
Yeah.
When do you do them?
Typically 9:40. Yeah, 9:40.
Because they're an hour behind.
Yeah.
Is it Tao or Toe? I always thought it was Toe and Tracy.
I don't know. Tao. I think it's Tao.
Tao. Yeah.
What's that short for? Or is that just his name?
I think it's his name. They've asked me to come on, but I can't because, well, I would be able to come on now when we change, at least. What time are they on?
What time?
Well, I don't remember because it's been a long time because I just couldn't do it.
I think they're like 8-10 or something.
You know, Alec?
And they end at 10, so I would assume 8.
Yeah.
So
that means
7 to 9 their
I was
time.
going to say, so it's really 7 to 9. So yeah. So I'll be able to go on
could
for
do
them
it,
if they want me to ever.
Because we are probably 2 weeks from now is what I've got in my head, going to move our start time back to 9 a.m.
So people, Dustin doesn't like that.
Well, we'll talk about it amongst ourselves, but here we go.
All made fresh and mouthwatering. Stop by Feast Market and Cellar today.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you here on this Friday. I hope everyone's ready for the weekend. January 5th, 2023. Pretty much made it through the first week of the new year. Not a good start for Indiana basketball, as last night they traveled to an 0-3 Iowa team in the 0-3 in the Big Ten and had a 21-point lead, but finished the game shooting 0 for 5, one of their last 7, no field goals in the last 3 minutes and 42 seconds, and lose this game by a bucket, Alec. You miss. You lose by 2 points and you can't score in the last 3:42. You got to get a bucket. You've got to have somebody that can get a bucket for you, and they just didn't. Of course, they lost Race Thompson. We haven't talked a lot about that. Before he went down, he was having a hell of a night. 9 points, 4 of 4 from the field, 3 rebounds, and an assist. Hit his only free throw. I can't remember. This is not showing the minutes.
He played 10 minutes, and it was right at the 4:30 mark of the first half.
Just horrible. Looked like it's potentially an ACL, or he got rolled up on. It looked like this was a classic football injury. I mean, I've seen this 1,000 times on the football field where a lineman gets rolled up on by a teammate or an opponent, and this is the exact same thing. You don't see this in basketball much, guys. And it was an Iowa player that hit the ground and rolled up into his knee, and it just buckled him, and had to be carried off of the floor. And he was in tears. And like I said, I think that was more of the disappointment of knowing what may lie ahead for him than the pain. But last night, Indiana started this game on fire, like we talked about. And when Race went out, they were still able to maintain things, but they kept letting Iowa cut chunks into this game, Alec. They let them go on runs and just let them back into the game. As a matter of fact, they kept trying to cut this thing. They got the biggest part of it done by the half.
Yeah, and a large part of that was, obviously you go to full court pressure, speed up a backcourt that doesn't have a lot of true ball handlers there now. You go to a zone, and that's again we've talked. I feel like we've talked about this the past few years, but Indiana's zone offense it has to be one of the worst in the country. I don't understand how you can't come up with some sort of scheme to beat the zone. You can't use the comment of this team's not a good shooting team anymore, because they are. They've proven now to be a good shooting team through the first 13, 14 games of the season. You have guys who are shooting over 37, 38% from three, multiple guys, not only as a point guard in Jalen Hood-Schifino, who went 5 of 8 last night, but you have guys on the perimeter and the wings with Miller Kopp and Tamar Bates, who have now proven to be two of the most consistent shooters in the Big Ten, shooting above 42% on the season. So when you look at that offense, right, I don't know how you can only have 3 shot attempts for Miller Kopp, 1 shot attempts from behind the arc from Miller Kopp, and only 8 points from Tamar Bates, 3 and 9 there, right? I mean, those were probably two of the Tamar Bates. We'll go with him, right? Those were 9 of the quietest shots I think I can remember. The two biggest shots were back-to-back possessions when he drained the deep three and then airballed the 15-footer. Outside of that, right, he kind of got lost out there and didn't really seem to be as aggressive as he has been in the past, 7-8 games, which has been why he was moved into that starting lineup. Miller Kopp was open a few times last night and was not able to get the ball. You can still run offense in the zone. It's not a, pass around the perimeter and occasionally have someone flash, right? You still can use ball screens, because at the end of the day, if you're using a ball screen, you're still going to open up something. And there was no aggressiveness outside of Jalen Hood-Schifino to get into the middle of the floor, to get into the paint, to turn the corner. I think obviously defense has been an issue all season long. You can't score 89 points and figure that you're going to lose the game, right? That can't happen. You can't give up 91 points, especially
51 in the second half. They only gave up 40 points in the first half, and like I said, they a chunk of that.
Yeah, but we say only 40 is a lot of points when you consider what this team has kind of made as their backbone, which has been defense, right? You look at the last couple Power 5 games, right? They have not kept an opponent under 40 points for a half. The last one you have to go to was Nebraska when they had 39 in the first or second half. Let's just round that up to 40, right? They've not been able to stop anyone. And you look at what Iowa was able to do in the second half, which again, I don't know how you can't find something else, any sort of defensive adjustment, go full court, go box and one, go 2-3 zone, do something to not allow Chris Murray and Rybaka to get easy post position every single possession down the floor. I mean, they in the second half alone, Iowa was scoring on 69% of their possessions. That's unheard of, for an entire half, right? You can do that in phases, but for an entire half, and they score basically 1.5 points per possession. That cannot happen if you expect to win games. And you look at what they were able to do even without Race Thompson and Xavier Johnson on the offensive end last night, and that was basically just two players. Let's be frank, right? Two players showed up offensively last night, and Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace. Again, there's just so many questions that this team. You would have hoped that that hard reset, that 13-day break, you would have come out, and maybe it would have, right? Maybe if Race was in the game and never got hurt, maybe that would have happened, and that would have turned the tables here. But you can't play the what if game anymore, and you need to find a way to win games and get stops and score points. Basketball's a simple game when you break it down that way, right? You just need to score more points than the other team, and at the end of the day, basketball and football, everyone always wants to talk about, how defense is what gets you places and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you just need to score one more point than the other team, and that comes down to making some sort of effort on the offensive end to adjust to what the other team is doing. And I did not see any adjustment to what Iowa did to Indiana last night, and that's the bigger question in my mind. Because if you're able to score 89 points, right, you should win games. And they just struggled in the last 5 minutes there to get any sort of rhythm, which is, head scratching at the end of the day.
Well, here's a number for you. The first half rebounding, we've talked about rebounding so much, and there is absolutely no way that Indiana should allow this Iowa team to out rebound them. They're just bigger than they are. First half, Indiana out rebounded Iowa in 20-14, as you would expect, as they had their way. The second half, Indiana got out rebounded 23-12.
That's not
that. That 23-12, that is unbelievable. Considering Indiana would only have 32 total rebounds for the game. and without eventually, of course, be out rebounded by Iowa. So Indiana just did not finish this game. They got out rebounded in the second half. They finished the game shooting 1 of 7 with no field goals in the last 342. They just didn't finish. And it was not because it would have been nice to have Race Thompson out there. That may have changed things probably during the game, but it didn't. He wasn't. So you can't think about that. They had the opportunity to win this game by simply not making mistakes. And that's the bigger issue. What turnovers? 14 turnovers for the game. That's not horrible. First half, and 11, because 11 of those came in the first half. So Indiana really cleaned things up in the second half with only 3 turnovers. Unbelievable. But they just were not getting rebounds. They weren't getting bench points. 6 total bench points from Indiana last night in the second half. Total of 15. They're not getting that. That means they're getting basically nothing off the bench. And that includes having a starter go down and having somebody come in. So
I want to go back to what Alex said about basketball being a simple game, because I think this is not just a Mike Woodson thing, but this is
it's a simple game.
This is little Forrest Gump there. This is a college basketball thing, and it drives me crazy, and it drove me crazy last night. I felt like what I hate in college basketball is under 30 seconds and the team has a possession and a coach will call a timeout. It seems like to me to just call a timeout. Like, we can't take it with us, so we're going to call a timeout. In that situation last night, I thought Indiana, after I think Iowa made the bet, I can't remember if it was a make or a miss, but after that last possession, I thought Indiana should have just run their offense, tried to get something going. Mike Woodson takes a timeout, and Alec, I don't know what the hell they were trying to do. Can you explain to me what they were trying to do on that last offensive possession? Because it seemed like to a point it was get Trace Jackson the ball, and then there was no backup plan, which again, we've talked about this a lot. It seems like if Trace Jackson Davis is double teamed, or if the offense isn't going through him, that's when the team to me looks really lost. So you would think if you're going to use that timeout, don't you come up with option A, B, and C? And it seemed like they had option A. Iowa takes that away, and then it just became you put the challenge on Jalen Hood-Schifino to create something, and obviously it didn't work out.
Yeah, and I actually think it was Keegan post-game, one of our writers for the Hoosier.com, who asked Mike Woodson that about, just the last play there and what happened. And the play was to get Trace the ball, as everyone expected, but it didn't seem like there was any second or third option. Right. And Mike Woodson basically said that after Jalen couldn't get Trace the ball, that, he went off script there, and, he got a great look. Let's be real. He got a great look at the rim. He did exactly what he was supposed to do in that situation, and that was try to get a foul called. But there was nothing, right? There was no movement. There was no off-ball action. There was no. You had way more than enough time to get some sort of movement going, and there was nothing. So I mean, it goes back, right? You say it's obviously. I think coaches at times try to overthink everything, yes. Right? And that's across all sports. They try to get too cute in the red zone in football, right? They try to get too cute in late game situations at times. At some point, it's like we said, it's a simple game when you break it down, and they're just Indiana just seems to make a simple game look so difficult in key situations when they've been in these key situations now how many times, and you're expecting them to take that situation and build off of it so they don't run into the same thing every single time, and they haven't been able to do that, and that's a concerning part that continues to be a trend for Indiana.
Well, and if you want to watch someone finish a game out, watch Purdue, the win that they pulled out on the road at Ohio State yesterday. It was exactly what you're talking about. That game comes down to the last second. Fletcher Lawyer feeds it to Zach Edey, who gets doubled. He just feeds it right back to Fletcher Lawyer, who knocks down a triple, and Purdue is able to escape with a gigantic road victory at Ohio State, which that would have been a huge win for Ohio State. But it's even a bigger one for Purdue, I think, coming off of the loss that they're coming off of. But that's Ohio State is one of those teams that's going to be in the upper echelon of the Big Ten. So getting that road win, that's huge for them. Alec, what is coming up next? Is there anything happening recruiting wise? I know it is a very, very slow time right now.
Yeah, I mean, I talked a little bit with 2024.
I guess we'll never know about our 2024 prospects.
I wonder if they're in the movie Frozen. So, but yeah, they'll just kick him out and kick him back in. But sure, that must have been not good news. But just have him bust out and then bust back in and see if he can come back and join us. But he will. He'll just turn around and hopefully he can get out here quick and get back in before we have to take a break. I'm sure he should be able to manage that.
Here we go.
Yeah. All right. So you talked with the 2024 classman?
Yeah, Liam McNeely. So the obviously the big news about Chris Beard, Texas and Indiana were the two programs to really stand out for him. That's a significant development for that recruitment. He talked with Indiana after his game yesterday. So before Indiana's game, they communicated. They talk numerous times.
Have you talked to Liam lately?
Well, yeah, I talked to him yesterday.
What do you have to say?
That's what I'm saying. That he's gonna see a lot of what happens in Texas is gonna deal with kind of that coaching staff and how that develops.
And that came out that Chris Beard will not be on the sideline for the remainder of this year for just to get you all caught up.
He's gone.
He's fired. Yeah.
He
fired him. That changed.
Yeah, he's fired.
Oh, wow.
Yesterday.
That changed.
Yesterday. Yeah.
I missed
so
that.
That's why that's a significant push there. I think he's going to wait a little bit to just kind of see what happens with that staff. But, I would say this firmly puts Indiana, at 1A right now. And we'll see what happens moving forward there. But that is significant for Indiana.
Absolutely. Another kid that would come through that Montverde pipeline. So we'll see how that works. Make sure you give Alec a follow if you're not already, and go to thehoosier.com for complete coverage of Indiana news and recruiting. Him with the entire staff. They'll be on that. Coming up this Sunday, the previews are coming up and coming out, I assume, Alec.
Yep, exactly. We'll have full previews and of obviously the Northwestern game, and talk about what needs to happen for Indiana to turn this whole skid around.
All right, brother. We appreciate you. Hope you have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
You bet. Alec Lasley joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, of course, brought to you by our good friends from Remax Realty, Cheryl Sizemore. If you are in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl, and her 2 decades of experience could be the difference between you getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com, or if you're in the Louisville, Floyd Clark, the southern Indiana areas of Floyd Clark, Harrison, Scott counties, Barbara Pop Real Estate Services has served those communities for 3 decades and can get you in the home you want faster, easier, and less expensive than anyone. Reach out to Barbara at barbarapop.com, or our friend Matt Lincoln, Matt at barbarapop.com. Back with Zach Osterman from the Indy Star right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore.
Morning, Zach. Oh, we may not have your audio. Sometimes it's simple as this. When you just go out and come back in, that's happened with a few of our guests before. If that doesn't work, we'll figure something else out. I'll have him go into his settings if it doesn't work.
What y'all laughing at?
Just reading the comments.
Just some of the comments.
I have not.
Let's see if that fixes it. You got it, Zach? No, here's let's when you go into your settings it's on the bottom of your screen.
Of Spreaker, yeah. I mean of
StreamYard. I have
StreamYard rather. Yeah, I'm sorry. It just says settings at the bottom.
And there'll be, once you do that, there's a tab that says audio. And then you may need to shuffle through the different microphone settings. Sometimes it resets them if you haven't been on them. But no, nothing there. I'm seeing if there's anything on my end I can do, but I don't think so. Nothing, still nothing. If you're shuffling through, go through all the microphone settings, and if nothing works, you could just join us through your phone if you don't mind. It's still.
Yeah, we can't hear you still.
He's good. Okay, he's going to do my phone, it looks like.
Oh, we're coming back in. Let's see. What comment were you laughing about? How about a zone defense? We have no plan.
I was laughing at Howie Moth's Jim
finger on the pulse coil. That was in response to the Chris Beard news.
Well, I was watching the Indiana damn game.
No, this happened at like 3 p.m.
Yeah, it was right in the middle of the day.
Because I saw something last night that said that. Well, it just said that all I saw was that the interim coach was going to be in place for the remainder of the season. I caught the end of that. Yeah,
gotcha.
And so I didn't hear anything prior to that, so I just assumed that it was going to be a year-long, he's going to be on leave or whatever.
All right, here we go, guys.
At thefreshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio commentary here on this Friday. It is January 5, first week of 2023. Thanks a lot for joining us. As always, Dustin Schutte with me as the co-host, and we're joined by the great Zach Osterman of the Indy Star. You know him, you love him, you can't live without him. Zachary, how are you, sir?
Hey, how we doing?
Can't complain. Just going over all kinds of things that happened yesterday, of course. Purdue pulling out a big win at Ohio State. I mean, that's especially coming off their loss, especially as close as they were to losing that game, to pull that game out. That's going to pay huge dividends for them down the road. Of course, Indiana going to Iowa, and really, I don't want to call it a collapse because it wasn't necessarily a collapse, but having a huge first half 21-point lead, losing Race Thompson and slowly letting that milk away, and then completely not able to finish the game as they finish 1 of 7, 0 for 5. They don't score a field goal in the last almost 4 minutes, and end up losing just by 2 points. Jordan Geronimo missing 3 field goal or free throw attempts. There's all kinds of little things I guess you could pick out in this game, but at the long and short of it is, it's a game that Indiana really, really needed to win against an 0-3 Iowa team in the Big Ten. This one's going to hurt.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It feels like Indiana, I don't know, players, coaches, fans have had to unpack a lot of games like this in the last few years, and I don't know how you start to kind of reconcile that, just in terms of, obviously Race Thompson's injury affects things. Obviously, there's the bad luck of the injury. There's the weird situation with Fran McCaffrey. There's, kind of the the weird technical foul on Jordan Geronimo, and yet on the other hand, you know, when you see enough of these games and you feel like people just are continually being moved to try and sort of excuse something like this, a game like this, and say, well, if that hadn't happened, you never know. Then you start to feel like, you know, that there are some core issues that go beyond just whatever happened in the game itself, or maybe some of the things that happened that were outside of Indiana's control. Indiana probably didn't handle that zone great early on. I know Connor McCaffrey was on Field 68 podcast last night and said that, you know, they looked like they'd never seen a zone before. They still scored like 1.07 points per possession in the second half. So I think that's probably a little overstated, but when you win, you get to talk a little louder, I guess. The press definitely slowed them down a little bit. You know, I think the area where it's most fair in kind of pointing particularly to Race Thompson's injury is guarding Keegan Murray. He had 7 points when Thompson went out, and Thompson was very clearly Indiana's sort of way home in terms of guarding Chris Murray. And he scored 23 of his 30 points after Thompson went down injured late in the first half. That's the one area where Indiana probably has some fair truck in terms of saying it was bad luck. But again, you know, Indiana's just found its way to losing a lot of games like this in the last few years, not just in the last year and a half that Mike Woodson's been here, but the last 5, 6, 7 years. And you do sort of look at Indiana and say, if it keeps happening, different players, different coaches, different opponents, different settings, same sorts of results, different manner of results. They played great offensively for long stretches last night until, as you point out, they don't make a field goal after the last media timeout. You just sort of say, well, there's something baked in here that is just not allowing you to finish enough of these games to be the program you want to be. And I think that's a tough reality to face up on a cold January morning.
Yeah, go ahead, Dustin.
Well, I was going to ask you, I mean, to you, Zach, does this come down to more of a mentality standpoint in that regard? Because I understand, I'm not dismissing when you don't have Xavier Johnson, when you see Race Thompson go down, that obviously you're going to have to call on some of your bench guys. You're going to have to call on some of the younger guys. So I definitely think that that's been a factor, especially early in this season. But at the same time, as you pointed out, I mean, this team had a million chances, even with everything that went against them, the technical foul on Jordan Geronimo and the Fran McCaffrey situation, some of the bad whistles they got. They still had a million opportunities to win, and they just, at times last year, to beat Ohio State, to beat Purdue in late games, I thought that and to win some games in the Big Ten tournament even, I thought that they had overcome maybe that hurdle, and I think that's where a lot of people thought that maybe they would take that next step, having that experience, winning some of those tight games. But right now, it looks like somebody pointed out Groundhog Day, basically. I mean, does it come down to mentality for you, or is there something else there that they're just not figuring out?
Well, I think you can even go back to these questions, like in 3 conference games now, they're allowing more than 1.02 points per possession. That's a team that finished last season under 1.01. It was the best number in the Big Ten. And, yes, injuries are part of that, but let's not kid ourselves. Indiana was poor defensively in the win at Xavier. They were poor in the loss to Arizona. They were poor in the loss to Kansas. Iowa's a really good offensive team. Don't get me wrong. They always have been. That's Fran McCaffrey's calling card. But, this team scores 89 points on the road. It needs to win a game.
Yeah.
And it goes back to sort of this more fundamental feeling, and I think you hit on some of it there, because I agree with a lot of what you said, that this team just has not figured out, and maybe injuries and circumstance will prevent them from ever figuring out. We don't know. But this team has not figured out yet, just like how to how to be the best version of itself, and something I wrote in my insider last night was any bet on Indiana as the Big Ten favorite in 2023 would have been a bet on obviously some of these guys that are injured right now. Xavier Johnson, Race Thompson, Trace Jackson Davis. I know he plays the whole game last night, but clearly he's not 100%. And if you told somebody, hey, by the restart of Big Ten play, 2 of these guys are going to be on the sideline and the third one's going to be hobbled with a back injury, you'd say, yeah, I have some serious reservations about picking Indiana to win the conference. But if I told you also Indiana would not, we're talking sort of X's and O's, what is the greatest reason to buy into Indiana as a Big Ten favorite? It would be saying, well, they had the best defense in the league last year. They only got better from a talent standpoint. If they hold serve where they are defensively and get even just a little bit better offensively, then they go from 9-11 to 12-8, 13-7 at minimum. And then that's when things can really start to take off. My point is, if you'd bet on Indiana to win the league, you would have been betting on some things that Indiana, that you thought you could count on Indiana to show night after night that they haven't yet this season. And that now, because of these injuries, if Race Thompson's is long-term, there's, legitimate reason to ask whether they will be able to show it. And so that's, it is this sort of collision of things that Indiana can control that they've not been able to, and things they can't control that are now kind of, stacking up on them that are obviously kind of putting them in a tough situation going down the stretch here.
Yeah, and I'm mentioning Iowa getting that win because there is no – one thing I've learned, Zach, is I don't think that there may be a clear-cut favorite in the Big Ten until possibly March. With some of the games we've seen, the results on who can beat who and beat whom where, while Purdue still looks very strong. Obviously, you go to Ohio State and get that win. That's big. But I don't know that there's going to be a favorite. And but Indiana losing what they've lost as a team that has not finished better than 9th in 6 years, this is going to make it very difficult for them to alter that course right now, unless they can get some improved production from guys like Jordan Geronimo and Malik Renew. Because with Race Thompson, I'm just going to assume he's going to be out for, I'll just call it an extended period of time. I don't know anything about it, but just assuming if that is the case, they're going to have to lean on him. But he has shown that the curve, the learning curve, is still trending up. His quickness or lack thereof has really got him and gets him in foul trouble quickly. And he's not really had much offensively either. So Indiana is without those weapons and not seeing them make great adjustments. There's a lot to worry about for this program right now, I think.
No, I mean, that's fair. You look at the second half last night, Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace Jackson Davis each play all 20 minutes. Malik Renew comes out at the 11:35 mark, doesn't come back in. Jordan Geronimo goes out at the 11:35 mark. I'm looking at the sub patterns here. Renew comes in at 11:35, goes out at 7:19. Geronimo goes out at 11:35 and doesn't come back in. Otherwise, everybody else is on the floor at 11 and a half minutes. Galloway, Jackson Davis, Hood Schifino, they all stay out there. So you're in a situation where whatever he might say, Mike Woodson plays basically. By the end of that game, he's got 5 guys he trusts. He's got Trey Galloway plays 14 minutes in the second half. Bates, Jackson Davis, Kopp, and Hood Schifino all play between 16 and 20. You know, you suddenly need that bench that's not quite a bench anymore because you've had to pull some of those guys into the starting lineup to grow up
Indiana,
fast.
speaking of the bench points in the second half, Zach, were a total of 6 for Indiana.
Yeah, and you just it you know, by his actions, Mike Woodson told you that in a tight game on the road last night, he had a very small number of players he trusted. And that's a tricky place to be when it seems like, and we've only seen Mike Woodson for a season and a half, so let's not make sweeping pronouncements about this is a Mike Woodson this and this is a Mike Woodson that in terms of his preferences and his roster building and things like that. But it does seem like he's most comfortable when he's able to have a defined second unit and when he's able to build a team that can clearly sort of transition ones to twos back to ones. Well, now all of a sudden you're kind of taking some of that away. Last night before the game, he told Don Fisher that Indiana was going to watch Trace Jackson Davis's minutes. He played 38, and he was clearly in pain. And he played great. He 30 points on 20 shots, 9 rebounds, 38 minutes, 8 of 10 free throws. There was some bizarre criticism I saw of him missing those 2 free throws late. But the more fundamental point is, the injuries that this is a team that's still searching for some answers, and it feels like these injuries might be taking too many of those potential answers off the table. And we'll find out, we'll find out where Race Thompson is at. But listen, I say this a lot. No one game can be a referendum on the direction of a season. You've got to be able, as a fan or anyone more connected than that to a program, you've got to be able to let individual results go. I'm not suggesting Indiana's season is over by any means, but if you view Indiana through the lens of a Big Ten favorite, of a Big Ten contender, then it's getting increasingly difficult to see how Indiana sustains that, as opposed to, just trying to, be a team that gets 500-ish in the conference, navigates the tournament, navigates its way into the tournament comfortably, and at least does that for the season.
Zach, what's up next for you, man?
And Northwestern. It's the grind. Indiana, the other part of the injuries is, that long layoff. Indiana doesn't have Indiana doesn't have more than 4 days between games until March. So we are very much kind of in the thick of it now.
All right, brother. Appreciate you. Make sure you give Zach a follow from the Indy Star, of course. Be a subscriber. I am. Keep local papers thriving and alive, man. Zach, I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, as always, fellas.
You better have a great one. We'll see you Sunday. We've got a big one coming up, though. Todd Leary, the man, the Todd father. We'll talk about last night. We'll talk about a lot of things. Get caught up on what's what. Appreciate everybody. Hey, while you're if you're viewing on YouTube, by the way, hit the subscribe and like button for us, so we can always provide you the content, so you don't miss a thing. We're here every day, 5 days a week, plus for post game. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from Metalworks Brewing Company, a part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wow Club. You can find Metalworks Brewing Company located in the former Function location, right off the square in Bloomington, catty corner from Cabello Restaurant, also a part of the Endeavor Hospitality Network. You can also get Metalworks at all of the Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home.
All right, I messaged Todd about 10 minutes ago, letting him know we were about ready for him. So
he's been watching the show, I think.
Oh, okay, cool.
He knows what's going down.
I just didn't know.
Happy birthday to Robert. I don't remember where Robert is. I'd have to pull the book out.
We have a lot of Roberts. We have Robert P right there. We have the Truth. We've got Robert S.
Not that.
You know, and I was looking at second half possessions. Indiana had exactly one more possession than Iowa.
Here comes the Todd father.
Ouch, that hurts. He's always got the greatest. He's always got the greatest.
Like handles on here.
He disappeared
into the black,
into the abyss.
My, hey. He says that in that song. Disappear into the black.
Oh.
He was.
I'd say anytime I've had a get on any show, not just here, a guest try to talk with AirPods, 9 times out of 10, it's horrible and stuff like that happens. I don't get why people do that. But it is what it is.
They just buzz out or what?
It just, there's just connection issues with those kinds of things. It's weird. You there, Todd?
Can you hear me now? Yep.
Let me.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're up all the way on my end.
No, I can hear you great now. For some reason, it wasn't in my headphones earlier.
Okay.
But I'm gonna pull up. I'm driving. Like, can you guys hear me fine? Am I okay like this?
Yes, sir. You
Chuck,
sound
fine. Pull over.
We'll have you turn your phone sideways if you could. The other way. Landscape. There you go.
Yeah,
Landscape.
Sweet.
Landscape.
All right, we still got 50 seconds till we come back. And Jim, I don't know if you'll want to use any of the sound, but I have the Connor McCaffrey comments, and I've got the Mike Woodson where he says the call was, or the Fran McCaffrey stuff was bullshit.
Oh, he said that?
Mike Woodson said that, yes.
Oh, well, let's just start with Connor McCaffrey. Just come back with it.
No, McCaffrey didn't say it was bullshit.
I understand that. Connor McCaffrey said that Indiana looked like they'd never seen a zone before.
Correct. Yes, I have that.
So play Connor McCaffrey to come back, and then play Mike Woodson after that. We'll just talk about them both afterwards.
All right, we'll introduce them. We'll come in normally, but yes, we'll start those at the beginning.
Come taste what Dr. Hops is brewing. Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. It is Friday, January 5, I thought. January 6th is Robert's birthday, so happy birthday to Robert down in the Evans Patch, as he calls it. Joined by the Todd Father now. Brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill down in Bedford. Great place to stop in, have lunch, catch a game, meet some friends, Cajun lineup. It's incredible. The Todd Father loves it. What's new, man?
He definitely loves it.
How is the Todd Father today?
Sorry to half the road, but gotta be somewhere this afternoon. So I hate to do it driving, but I don't really have a choice.
Got to get those pineapples to Hawaii, man.
Sorry to have to do this from the. Yeah, sorry to do it on the road, but I got to get rolling.
Oh, that's all right. Last night after Indiana played, last night after Indiana played Iowa, Connor McCaffrey was on a podcast and had some funny words. Let's hear what he had to say, John. Or not. He was
I'm hugging top too close, and I'm a step late on getting over on Trace, and he gets an M1. Like that's a brutal start. That's on me. That's like a bat, and then it just spiraled from there. And then we were like a step late, but then like if switch flipped and we were the aggressor, 100%. From that point on, like we were the aggressor, and it's that simple. We played harder, and they didn't know what to do against the zone. Like their coaching staff was looking. They had no idea. Like I don't know if they ever seen it before.
That's my fault. I didn't realize I wasn't in the stream at first. It's my bad.
That's
I was playing it away from you guys.
But just to have an opposing player say that is kind of funny, or not funny, but it would be not something you want to hear. because that was a problem for Indiana last night. And then let's go ahead and get Mike Woodson's comments out of the way in regard to Fran McCaffrey. And I am tired of his stick, but Mike Woodson doesn't usually respond to a lot of stuff like that. But here's what he had to say.
I'm not even going to comment on that because that's bullshit. Is what it is, and you can print that because again, when you can allow coaches to come across half court into your space, that's bullshit. It is.
Well, that's pretty much how a lot of people feel, and I agree with him. It is because I'm tired of the Fran McCaffrey shtick that he gets away with every game. It looks like a WWE pre-planned deal where he goes and gets mad and he's got to have 4 people holding him back. And it's just ridiculous, especially when you consider the fact that Jordan Geronimo gets called for a technical foul for flipping the ball to an official and being called for delay of game. Just ridiculous. But did that cost Indiana the game? No. Could they have taken advantage of that and it helped? Yeah, but I'm not saying that that's why in any way am I saying that Indiana had opportunities. So I'm just keep those separate, that it is BS. And it is a problem. These officials are goofy. Now, okay, there was another situation. They called a tie-up. I think it was Jordan Geronimo, which means a jump ball.
Yeah.
But still called a foul on Geronimo for grabbing after the tie-up. Because if it's a tie-up, it's a tie-up, and the play's dead ball. Boom. There's no foul. That would be a post game. That's a technical foul. If you're calling a foul for a the play's over and you're doing that would be a technical foul. So the officials have gotten horrible just across the board. I think they don't have Todd, I'm talking about the officials and not in a way towards Indiana. I just think that they're just horribly ridiculous. We lost him again for not keeping that technical foul on Fran McCaffrey, for calling the technical foul on Jordan Geronimo, and then calling a foul on Geronimo for a reach-in while simultaneously calling a jump ball. That's never happened in basketball.
Right.
Where is that ever? That goes back to the only other worst call I've seen in my life is when Indiana played Purdue here, and you had Caleb Swanigan and Thomas Bryant get called for a freaking block charge.
Oh, I remember that.
And the game's winding second. I'm like, that was the most gutless call in the history of gutless calls. But these guys they're just, I really want to know what there's a guy named John. I need to get him on here. He used to be head of officiating. I'd love to talk to him about some of those things.
It would be very interesting. There was another play in which I can't remember who it was for Iowa, but Jalen Hood-Schifino took an elbow, a forearm to the face, and got called for the foul. Now, I think he might have reached in before that play happened, but that wasn't called either. So there were a lot of instances in which you could say the officiating worked against Indiana. But again, they had a million opportunities to win that game. They had chances. They couldn't get it done defensively, which is really interesting because this is a coaching staff that has talked so much about getting it done defensively. And this is in these big time games, Kansas, Arizona, and then against Iowa, against better offensive teams, they couldn't get it done.
Todd, Indiana jumps out to a big lead last night, something completely opposite what we had seen, something that people had begged for them to do, and they do that, 22-4, 27-8, and most people knew that it probably wasn't going to stay that way because when those big leads come early in games, there usually is going to be a run or two, and especially on the road. And it did tighten up, but Indiana allowed it to tighten up too much. They gave up too much right before the half. And then without Race Thompson in the second half, they get out-rebounded 23-12 after out-rebounding Iowa 20-14 in the first half. And things just took we heard Connor McCaffrey say there was the switch flipped and they became the aggressor.
Yeah, I mean, that game last night was eerily similar to the Wisconsin road game Indiana had last year. where they jumped out to a gigantic lead, and then they let part of it slip right before halftime, and then the second half they just were trying to hang on the entire game. And as it was unfolding, I was just like, I kept having flashbacks, because I thought that was a big turning point in last year's season, because Indiana, I thought, had some momentum at that point. I thought they kind of were feeling good about themselves, and then losing that game last year to Wisconsin, I just felt like it was hard to get back to that confidence level I think they had before that. And I hope it's not the same result, but it sure felt the same. And coming out that game with the last night, I mean, depleted. I know Indiana was depleted, but that's a depleted Iowa team too. And I know they're usually good offensively. That's not a good offensive team. I mean, they're okay, but they're not above average. I mean, they're average offensively. So I mean, there's just so many alarming things that come out of that. And I'm not saying I'm, sounding the red alarm, but there's a lot of things that need to be shored up and fixed with this group right now.
Yeah, they had really, shooting had been coming around for this team, especially if you look at the numbers. Of course, losing Race Thompson after losing Xavier Johnson there's no doubt that is going to have a massive effect, because before Race went out last night, in the only 10 minutes that he played, he'd already scored 9 points, had 5 rebounds, and was impacting the game. Indiana, like I said, out-rebounded Iowa in the first half 20-14, but without him, they get crushed on the boards, and they just seem like they resorted back to the old style of offense where they weren't as fluid and keeping the ball moving. The spacing wasn't there. Why was that so different offensively?
I mean, a couple things, if you went back and played our conversations and our post-game show conversations early in the season, I mean, I think we beat the dead horse by overstating how deep the team was. And if you didn't watch the game and you just looked at the box score and you saw that only 8 players played in the game, and then one of the starters only played 10 minutes, I mean, how deep are they? Like that I go back to that. I think we were trying to figure out how they were going to enough minutes for them started. And right now, it's down. Like it is not. It's super tight. So, I think we thought, or I definitely thought, and spoke a lot about the rotation of Renew, Race, and Trace, and those 3 guys would share, 80 minutes a game between the 2 positions. And Race going down, yeah, it's a big deal. It's a gigantic deal. He's a big part of this team that can run a lot of things through him. Takes a lot of pressure off of Trace, the offensive end, and him is Malik early, at least pre-games, looked like been and over some of that role or be out of that 3-man rotation. And right now, with only 6 minutes last night in a game where they needed some minutes, that's a tough thing to think you're going to rely on at this point. But and then another thing to go. I was listening to Dustin and earlier in the basketball game. Like, it really is that Connor McCaffrey. I hate to say it, but he's right. Like, that zone offense or that zone defense they were playing, Indiana's zone offense was not very good, or was terrible, but Iowa's zone defense isn't very good either. And Indiana just couldn't figure out to do. And I mean, here's how Coach Knight simplified. I hate to be, I always am, and I can relate to what he taught me, but that's what I know about basketball. And Coach Knight always said from the very beginning, like, we would laugh if a team played a zone against us, because one, it was here's what you got in zone. And the man also, whenever
we're having a hard time hearing you, man. Your signal's really breaking up on us.
And there's all of a sudden thinking clear. Is it really? Shoot, I haven't moved.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Because I can. Yeah, because we don't want to miss out on any of this good information.
Let me click out and come back in.
Yeah, we'll do that because we don't want to miss out on any of this
can
because
you hear
it's
me okay?
important.
Yeah, I mean, I did
Yeah, go ahead.
So, yeah. Click out. I'll click out. I'll back in just a minute.
Sounds good. Yeah, we don't want anybody to miss out on any of that. This is the stuff that I want to hear because I want to learn. Like I said, I don't pretend to be an expert. Anybody that thinks that I think I am, they're nuts. I learned from guys like Todd. I learned from guys like Brian that we have on here. The people that I respect and that I know played this game, not only played it, but played it here, played it under people like Bob Knight, Dustin. So when these guys are the ones that they know what's going on, they can see it because they played it and they did it here. And I think that was, Zach hit on a great point about when you see things that are happening through two different coaches, it looks very, very similar. The only thing that is similar is a lot of the players are the same. They're not all the same. But again, this is the same team that has not finished above ninth in the Big Ten. Now, did they just lose Race and X? Yes, absolutely. Is that going to affect them? Yeah, absolutely. Losing X, I wouldn't have thought this, but is probably going to be easier to deal with only because you have Jalen Hood-Schifino that can, as we've seen, admirably back up that role. I mean, the one good thing you can say about him is he has grown in his role as a point guard for Indiana. You just look at his game last night, as a matter of fact, his stat line. Where the heck did I put that? But what do you have? 21 points? Yeah. Let me pull up the old game, get the game box. 21 points on 6 of 13 shooting, 5 of 8 behind the 3-point line, 4 of 6 at the free throw line. It would have been nice for you to hit them all. 3 rebounds, but 9 assists. He almost had a double-double with 9 assists.
I mean, he's stepped up in a big way for a freshman to come in and to do what he's done and to be fearless, especially early in that game last night. I mean, I thought he did a phenomenal job of stepping up in X's absence, and he's really showing what he can do if he has to be the primary point.
Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, hopefully have Todd Leary back with us, and we can get back to talking about what happened last night and what is going to happen going forward for Indiana basketball. Thanks a lot for everybody that's on board. We're brought to you by our good friends from Endeavor Hospitality's Wild Club and Cabello Restaurant, where you can taste the wonderful tastes and traditions of Southern Italy right here in Southern Indiana. Just go to Cabello Restaurant in the former Grazie location on the north end of the square, and you enjoy it beyond belief. That I guarantee you. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
All right, hopefully we can get a good one out of Todd here when he comes back. He told me to give him a sec. I said, take your time, man. We'll be fine.
Yeah. Nope, Todd was... I'm not sure which one I said. Howie?
I think they said when you said I'm not an expert.
Ha!
He's the same one who also said Jim finger on the pulse coil.
Oh no! Howie's he's the funny one. I got news for you. He's always got the quick wit, and it's good stuff. Always, baby.
All right. Well, we got here comes Todd. We got 2.5 minutes. Let's see if we can get him straightened out.
Hey people, hit the like and subscribe button. We'd really appreciate that, by the way. Appreciate everybody jumping on today. A nice crowd. Appreciate you guys so very, very much.
All right. And he evidently couldn't hear us. This is what my guess is there.
And he's gone again.
What I want to tell him to do is just drop the AirPods. Just do it with the phone.
Just text him.
All right. Let's see if he'll.
And then there's Maud. You can change that to then there's Todd. Do you remember that show?
No.
And then, well, you wouldn't. None of you, I would.
It's a minute and a half. Hey, Todd, if you can hear us, try doing it without the AirPods if you haven't done that yet.
I think you can now. I think you can hear us. I can hear you.
Yeah.
Now you put the AirPods. Let's keep talking.
Is it better?
I don't think.
No.
There we go.
Yes.
Better without the earpods?
Yes.
Yes. Is
All
there
right,
any delay?
sorry.
I felt like there was some bad delay also early on.
It's all right. We're good now.
The delay
Yeah,
can be bad.
there was earlier, but so I was in a bad area. Like, how long do we have before we're on?
A minute.
Just
Okay.
turn your phone
I'm just gonna
sideways
move.
again.
Like, I keep moving. I keep getting to where I have a good signal, and then for some reason, once I get on here, it goes away. But right now, oh motherfucker, just did it again.
Oh, that sounds like me. That sounds like
We're not
me,
on,
man.
right? We're not
Nope.
on, right?
That's not going over the air. I mean, it's going over YouTube, but that doesn't matter. So
That's.
Oh, my bad. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. It's okay.
Oh, that's
it's
okay.
What matters is the.
They enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
All right,
Family
20
friendly
seconds.
program.
Let's see if we can get through this segment.
Always provide their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you here on this Friday. Thanks a lot for joining us. We appreciate you. Of course, brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, our good friends down there off of I-65. If you're down that way, they've got over 50 TVs and food made fresh every day. It's good stuff. Pizza, burgers, beer. I haven't been there for a minute. Miss it. The Todd Father's with us, Todd Leary. Todd, Indiana coming off of an 89-91 loss at Iowa last night in a game that they did not hit a field goal in the last 3 minutes, 42 seconds. Missed hit one of their last 7, missing 0 for the last 5 in a game they lost by 2 points. That has got to drive Mike Woodson insane. Pretty good at the free throw line, but they still left 11 free throws.
Not good at the free throw line.
Yeah, I guess really, 65%. So they lose the game at the free throw line. A game like this, you've got Jordan Geronimo who went 0 for 3. George Schifino missed 2 out of his 6. Trey Saxon Davis misses 2 late. Out of the 10 that he had. And then Trey Galloway missed. He only hit 50%. I mean, you can't have guys shooting 50% and 0 for 3.
When you look at the other statistics that are on there, the shooting statistics, like Indiana should have won this game. The free throws is the one that stands out in a 2-point loss, obviously. And on the road, like that was always one of the key factors is you've got to shoot well you got to get to the free throw line a lot and make a lot of them. And 26 free throws on the road, you should win that game. Like that's a game that you should win. Scoring 89 points, you should win that game on the road.
Shooting 53% from the 3-point.
What's that?
They shot 53% from behind the arc.
Yeah, like all the shooting statistics looked good. Like Indiana, offensively played definitely well enough to win. But in saying that, like what I was saying before, and again, I apologize for having to do this on the road because it's unprofessional, and I apologize, but I didn't really have a choice today. But
sounds great now.
That zone offense. Back to what I was saying earlier in the zone offense, like it. Dustin and Alec earlier talked about it's a simple game, and it is a simple game. And Coach Knight kind of had the way he taught us to understand how to play against any defense in general, but especially a zone defense, because coaches for some reason seem to, once a team goes to a zone, they like switch to a zone offense, which we really didn't switch to a zone offense. We kind of played the same offense, but you have one basic rule.
and you make two people guard you. And so what you see a lot of teams do when a zone comes out is they just pass the ball around the perimeter until they can feed it into the post. And it doesn't work very often. And Coach Knight got us to understand that if you take, that one or two dribbles, if you watch a zone, a pass fake, you can watch everybody like kind of move against the zone. And in a dribble, if you dribble one direction, everybody in the zone kind of leans that way. And if you take a dribble, like we had a rule, and you make two people guard you, which doesn't mean you have to drive into a trap. But if I dribble towards someone, that guy's going to move towards or move to cut my lane off. And it's really simple, because as soon as he does that, like, you're supposed to take one dribble. As soon as he even leans one way, you kick it, and then he's all of a sudden in recovery mode. And that's where you saw Connor McCaffrey talking about they were the aggressor. Well, against the zone, Indiana should have been the aggressor. And it is very simple. It's really, really simple. But if you pass the ball on the outside, just hoping to feed it in the post, it's not simple. It's very difficult. And zones sit back there and laugh because they can rest on defense, and they really don't have to move that much. There's no pressure against them. And that's the one part I don't understand. It's like, Indiana did this against Syracuse last year, and they should have won that game. And they just couldn't. They wouldn't make that one little dribble and make someone, I don't even say guard you, but you got to make two people commit to you. And the one guy's in front of you, and if you take a dribble towards a guy, he's going to lean in, and then you kick it. And then that guy takes a dribble, and somebody else has to recover to him. It's really simple, and it's laughable. And the fact that they don't do it, I just don't understand it.
The last play of the game at Indiana, too, they had one more possession in the second half than Iowa did, which ended up being a shot to win the game. And I would much rather have seen to try to get a shot off than, I guess, driving to the rim. If it works, great, but that didn't look like it had a real shot of happening. So why not try to get a shot by somebody and just win the game on the road and get the hell out of there? Dustin, what do you think?
Yeah, the part I timeout was that they were just try to get the ball. If that was going to be, because obviously that was the one Iowa was trying to take away. And so I like the fact that Jalen drove the ball to the basket and got into where he did. I wish he had pulled up at like 6 feet or 8 feet rather than all the way in there, but he's trying to draw the foul. That's 56 or so. That's whatever. But I didn't mind that part of it. It should have never gotten to that point. Like it was the frustrating part of the offense happened way before that.
What is this team going to have to do now, Todd? You're down. You don't have your senior most playmaker. You've now lost another starter in Race Thompson, a valuable part of this team, and they're going to have to depend on people like Malik Renew, who has not shown any consistency and growth into the Big Ten schedule yet, and they're going to have to start playing Trey Galloway more, as Tamar Bates had already entered the starting lineups. They've gotten slower to me. Dustin, what do you think?
Yeah. We've talked about Indiana's depth, and even Zach brought it up. We thought that this team was going to be a lot deeper. And Todd mentioned it too. We talked about how, the experience, the depth, the talent that they all have is there, but now it's kind of wiped away because of the injuries. And then I think guys are also not performing at the same level that we thought that they might. And now it's kind of, there's got to be some sort of challenge here. You got to get some of these guys to step up in a big way. I think Jalen Hood-Schifino has delivered. I think Trey Galloway, when he comes off the bench, is a really good player. Probably not the best for that starting role, but I think we talked a lot about the toughness. I think the toughness for the most part was there. I just thought that there was some bad decision-making and some questionable decisions. Like I said, I go back to Jordan Geronimo at times throughout that game, making a lot of bad decisions. And then on the offensive side, it just didn't look like he knew what he was supposed to be doing or where he was supposed to be on the floor. Now, he had some flashes, but that was, to me, I can't, and I don't remember if it was late in the first half or early in the second half, but at points in that game, he just looked lost. That's a concerning thing for a guy who's been there a couple of years.
Todd, can you hear us? Yeah, I think we're losing Todd, unfortunately, but yeah, we'll have to try it with him again. There's always Sunday, the postgame show.
There you go.
Unfortunately, but yeah, it's there has to be great concern for Indiana fans right now. I'm not going to lie to you, but this team is still good enough to beat teams in the Big Ten.
Yes.
The concern is being good enough to win games on the road, because while last night they came out looking refreshed, they came out looking like they were playing a little more hard-nosed, but they wore down and they ran out of steam of that. And it seems like when they lose that toughness, when the game was tied, when they lost the lead, now they're playing from behind, and that toughness goes away.
I didn't think that. I didn't think that at any point the team didn't play hard or they were not playing tough. I just thought that they made a lot of bad decisions. I thought that they tried to rush too much at times in that game. And Alec hit on this too. At times, like Iowa made in-game adjustments. I don't know that Indiana did.
Todd, as far as the offense that you see being run right now, is this something that is working collegiately? Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think it's just going to work with Todd today, so we're going to have to try him another time. John, if he gets a better signal, that'd be great, but I don't think that's going to work, unfortunately, because I sure wanted to hear everything that he had to say, although he said a good part of it. But there are just a lot of questions that have to be asked, and they still should have won that game last night.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
No doubt. No doubt.
Try you again there, brother. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think it does better when I'm driving, which doesn't make any sense, but
yeah, there you go. So,
if you can hear me, I can hear you great right now.
Right now, this team, there's a lot of concerns going forward. They're going to have to figure out how to work without two guys that they had planned to have. One, they just figured out how to work without over this break without having Xavier. Now they've got to figure out how to do it without Race, because we saw them just slowly diminish last night. I don't know if that was just wear and tear on Trace, having to play those extra minutes, and Malik Renew not kind of getting up to speed just yet. But that's going to be a major issue for this team going forward. And a Northwestern team coming in Sunday that they're 11-3 right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're confident as could be. And, this Indiana team right now has to have some guys step up. Like it's really pretty simple. I mean, they've got to have some guys. We talked about their depth early on. They've got to have some of the younger guys. I mean, I think this is an opportunity for Geronimo to, insert himself like Tamar Bates has done, and get a bigger role on this team. It's a chance for, CJ Gunn to possibly work himself into the lineup. I mean, honestly, if Indiana, I think the real thing that Indiana missed last night more than anything was Xavier. He is such a big part of this. And, you can, I don't want to bring Purdue into this, but you can look at Purdue's situation and why is Purdue, overachieved to this point? Because they have unbelievably solid guard play. And Braden Smith as a freshman plays like a ninth-year senior. And, I mean, he just got that team under control. And they bring the Jenkins kid off the bench. They are very solid at the guard position. And Indiana's not. And I'm not saying they're not good players. I'm just saying right now that position is not producing and not doing the things that getting the ball where it needs to go, knocking the plays against the zone defense. It's different when you take away your floor leader. And that's why I think they would have won that game last night, I think, if Xavier is there in the second half. But, he's not, so we just got to move forward.
Yep. Well, and we'll do just that as we'll move forward to Sunday now, as Indiana will welcome in the Northwestern Wildcats, and we'll have a post-game show where we'll be in a lot better shape to talk about that game, and we can reconsider this one as well. But look forward to it. Todd, have a safe drive, brother, and we'll see you on Sunday.
Thanks. Again, I apologize, but appreciate it, and I look forward to talking to you Sunday.
Absolutely. But big thanks to everybody as well on the program today. Alec Lasley, can't thank him enough. Zach Osterman, of course, for joining us as well from the Indy Star. And, of course, Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com, our co-host, and John, the producer. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we've got no reason to be here, and we love being here with you. We will be back Sunday for a post-game show after the Northwestern game, so with Todd. So make sure to tune into that. And that way we'll be all set and ready to go. And we'll if you want to have questions about this game, we could relive that as well, just to get that put back into place. Sorry that we missed that, weren't able to bring that to you. But, man, thanks a lot. It's good to be back. And, Dustin, how's your weekend looking?
I got to work all weekend, so I won't have any fun plans, but it'll be covering sports isn't a bad thing, so.
Oh, I got to figure out how to get my keys out of my car. So while I'm doing that, I thank everybody else for an excellent day. Thank you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and like button. Have a great day down on the river, folks. The ref's always the right call. Until Sunday, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.